She cheated with my best friend, then stole $250, $0 in our divorce, only to later claim I was the one embezzling and try to take the house, and I just found out she's been hiding a secret life the whole time. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about my own wife cheating on me, but somehow, life has a way of throwing the worst surprises when you least expect it. Honestly, this whole thing feels like a bad movie I can't wake up from. It started with little signs. She was more distant than usual, coming home late from work, and brushing off my questions with that bitchy smirk she always had when she thought she was getting away with something. At first, I just thought she was stressed or maybe having an affair at her office, but I never imagined it was with my best friend, Jake. The first real sign was when I noticed her phone was always face down on the nightstand, and she'd get defensive if I tried to look at it. She'd snap, say I was paranoid, accuse me of not trusting her. But I could see the flicker of guilt in her eyes sometimes, especially when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Then I started noticing small things, cash missing from our joint accounts, strange charges I didn't recognize, and her spending habits getting more reckless. She'd blow off money on luxury handbags, fancy dinners, or trips she claimed were for work, but I knew better. One night I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I wasn't snooping out of distrust. No, I just wanted to see if she was hiding something, and that's when I found the messages. They weren't explicit at first, just flirtatious texts with someone named Jake, but the tone was clear. They'd talk about meeting up, about how much she loved the thrill, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I saw pictures, her in bed with him, laughing, sharing drinks, all that intimate stuff that should have been between a married couple. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My mind raced. I couldn't believe she'd do this to me, her supposed soulmate. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious all at once. I knew I had to confront her, but I wanted to do it right. I needed the truth from her mouth, not just my assumptions. The next day I called her out in the kitchen, my voice trembling but steady enough to sound like I meant business. She tried to deny everything at first, called me paranoid, said I was imagining things. But I had the receipts, screenshots, messages, pictures. It was all there. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that it was just a mistake, that she loved me but Jake was just a harmless fling. She told me I was overreacting, that I was controlling. That's when I saw the real bitchy side of her. She was good at lying, at twisting things around. She spun a web of excuses, saying Jake was just a friend, that I was jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I saw the way she looked at him in those messages, like he was her escape. And the worst part, she had the nerve to accuse me of cheating too, saying I must have been unfaithful because I was distracted lately. I was crushed. I'd given her everything, my love, my trust, my life savings. We had a good life, or so I thought. But now I was staring at the wreckage of everything I built. How could she do this? How could she lie so easily, so convincingly? I felt like I was losing my mind. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, and I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs. How did I not see it coming? It's like she was living a whole secret life, and I was just too blind or too stupid to notice. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my head, trying to piece it together. The betrayal hit me hard, but what hurt even more was realizing that she had been lying to me for months, maybe longer. I started digging into our finances more seriously, and that's when I found out she had stolen around $250, $0 in our divorce. She drained our savings, transferred money into her own accounts, and even bought a house behind my back. I was stunned. How could she be so cold, so calculating? It was at that moment I realized this wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about her outright betrayal of our entire life together. She lied, cheated, stolen, all to keep her secret life hidden. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut again, only this time I was bleeding out from the inside. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what. All I knew was that I couldn't let her get away with it, not without a fight. After I found out about the money, everything changed. I was already spiraling, but now it felt like I was drowning. I started digging through bank statements, emails, and her phone, trying to understand just how deep her lies went. It wasn't just the affair and the theft. It was the fact that she'd been planning all of this for months, maybe longer. She'd been living a double life, and I was the last to find out. She told me she was working late all those nights because she was trying to save for a surprise trip for us. Yeah, right. Turns out she'd been funneling money into a secret account, possibly to buy that house she claimed was for us, but was actually her own escape plan. I couldn't believe she'd pulled that kind of stunt behind my back, especially after everything I'd done for her. I had bust my ass building a successful career, working hard to give us a good life, and she was secretly siphoning off our savings to run away. I started noticing her behavior shift even more. She was colder, more dismissive, and whenever I brought up money or her late meetings, she'd dismiss me with a bitchy laugh or call me paranoid. I knew she was hiding something, and that realization made my blood boil. The worst part was that she had the audacity to accuse me of being unfaithful, claiming I was the one sneaking around. She'd lie so convincingly, I almost believed her at first. But then I'd find another piece of evidence, an email, a receipt, a text, and it all fell apart again. One day, I decided I needed to see her phone again. I waited until she was out shopping, and I snuck into her purse. That's when I found the final piece of the puzzle, screenshots of her with more explicit than the last. There were pictures of her in bed with him, texts about how much she loved the thrill, how she couldn't wait to see him again. I saw messages where she was talking about leaving me, about how I was boring and too predictable. It was sickening. She'd been planning her escape for months, all while pretending everything was fine. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach again. How could she do this? How could she betray me, cheat with my best friend, and then steal our money? It was like she was trying to destroy everything I built, everything I loved. I started to get angry, really angry, not just sad or betrayed, but furious. I wanted to confront her, but I also wanted to make her pay. I knew I had to come up with a plan, something that would hit her where it hurts: the money, the house, her reputation. That night I sat in the dark, trying to think clearly. I knew I couldn't just blow up everything without a plan. I had to be smart. I decided I'd get a lawyer, figure out exactly what she'd done and how I could use it against her. I also wanted to find out if she'd hidden any more secrets, bank accounts, properties, anything. I was determined to get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. In the meantime, I kept quiet. I didn't tell her I knew about the affair or the money. I just played it cool, pretending everything was normal. I wanted her to feel safe, to let her guard down so I could catch her in a lie. But honestly, I was seething inside. Every time she smiled or acted innocent, I wanted to scream at her, to shake her and ask how she could be so manipulative, so cold. Meanwhile, I started to realize that my entire life with her was built on lies. She lied about her feelings, about her loyalty, about her intentions. She'd betrayed me not just once, but repeatedly. I'd been blind, but now I saw her for what she really was: a selfish, manipulative bitch who'd do anything to get what she wanted, even if it meant destroying my trust, my money, and my happiness. I couldn't wait to see her face when I finally confronted her with everything I'd uncovered. I was planning to take her to court, make sure she paid for what she'd done. But more than that, I wanted her to understand that she'd lost everything: her marriage, her reputation, her freedom. She thought she could lie and cheat her way out of it, but I was about to turn the tables. The game was on, and I was ready to play it dirty. The day I finally decided to confront her, I felt a mixture of relief and pure rage. I had all the evidence now: screenshots, bank statements, emails, and I was ready to lay it all out. I knew she'd try to spin her way out of it, as she always did, but I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I wanted her to understand that I wasn't some fool anymore. I saw her for what she truly was: a liar, a thief, and a cheat. That morning, I called her at work and told her I needed to talk. She sounded annoyed, as if I was bothering her with some insignificant issue. When she got home, I was already waiting in the dining room with my laptop open, displaying all the damning evidence. Her face. twisted into that familiar bitchy smirk. She thought she could talk her way out of it, that she could just deny everything again. I started slow, laying out the facts. You've been lying to me for months. I know about Jake, about the affair, about the money you've stolen from us. Don't bother denying it. I've got everything right here. I played the screenshots of her in bed with him, the messages where she talked about leaving me, about how she found her perfect escape. Her eyes widened, but she quickly masked it with that arrogant, dismissive attitude she always had. She shot back with her usual lies. You're crazy. You're just jealous because I'm successful and you're insecure. Jake is just a friend, and all that money I was just saving for us. You're overreacting as usual. She tried to spin it as if her betrayal was just some innocent mistake, a lapse in judgment, but I saw through her. I knew her game. I told her I knew she'd been planning her exit for months, that she'd been siphoning our savings into her secret account, buying that house behind my back. Her reaction was swift. She started crying, but it wasn't genuine. It was that fake, manipulative crying she always used to get her way. She said she didn't mean to hurt me, that she was just unhappy and needed a way out, that she loved me but Jake was different, that she never meant for it to get so complicated. I couldn't stand her act. I saw right through her tears. She was just trying to distract me, to make me feel guilty so I wouldn't fight back. I told her, you've been lying to me, cheating on me, stealing from me, and now you're trying to act like the victim. Not anymore. I made it clear I was taking her to court, that I was going to get everything back, our money, the house, whatever she'd hidden. I wanted her to realize that her little game was over. I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life savings or my home. She snapped at me, calling me paranoid, accusing me of trying to ruin her. She said I was just jealous because she was successful and she deserved better than me. That she'd been planning this for a long time, her escape, her new life. I could see her eyes flicker with that bitchy glint, the one that told me she was already thinking about her next move. She was trying to turn me into the bad guy, just like she always did, but I wasn't falling for it anymore. I was done playing her game. As the confrontation escalated, I realized something. This wasn't just about the affair or the money. It was about control. She wanted to control the narrative, to make herself seem innocent, while she destroyed everything I built. But I was done being the victim. I had the proof now, and I was ready to fight. I knew legal action was the only way to get her to face real consequences. That night, I started calling lawyers. I wanted to know my options: divorce, suing her for the stolen money, possibly even exposing her secret life to the world. I also began planning how to get the house back. I'd read enough about assets and property laws to understand that I had a shot. But more than anything, I wanted her to understand that she couldn't just lie her way out of this anymore. Her game was over. Throughout the day, I felt an uneasy mixture of relief and dread. Relief because I finally had some clarity, some leverage. Dread because I knew things were about to get uglier. She was a manipulative bitch, and I could see her trying to spin the story to her advantage, to make herself look like the victim. But I wasn't going to let her win. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine, for my dignity, and for the truth. I sat alone afterward, staring at the evidence on my laptop, feeling both exhausted and strangely empowered. Yes, I'd been blindsided. Yes, I was broken inside. But I also knew that I wasn't going to let her destroy me without a fight. This was just the beginning. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I spent most of my time on the phone with lawyers, gathering more evidence and planning my next moves. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Those fake tears, that smug look when she thought she was pulling one over on me. I was furious, but I knew I had to stay calm, strategic, if I wanted to win this. I couldn't let her see me crack. One thing I learned quickly was that she'd already started covering her tracks even more. I found out she'd transferred the rest of our savings into a secret offshore account, one I didn't even know existed. She'd done it right under my nose, and the amount she'd hidden was staggering. I realized she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe longer. It made me sick to think how much trust I'd misplaced, how naive I'd been to believe she was just working late or out with friends. I decided I couldn't let her get away with it. I filed for divorce immediately, citing infidelity, theft, and financial misconduct. I also contacted a forensic accountant to trace her funds and uncover any other hidden assets. Meanwhile, I started the process of reclaiming our house. I knew she'd try to contest it, probably claiming she had some right to it or that I was unfit to own property because of her false accusations of embezzlement. But I had proof: bank statements, her secret account details, her emails. I was confident I could get it back. Her reaction to the divorce papers was predictable. She called me a controlling asshole, said I was ruining her life, that she deserved better than to be left because I was jealous and insecure. She threw her usual tantrum, crying, screaming, trying to guilt me into dropping everything. But I didn't back down. I told her I'd see her in court, and I'd make sure she paid for everything she had done. That was the first time I really felt a sense of control, like I was finally taking back what was mine. Throughout all this, her bitchy side only intensified. She'd lash out at me, accuse me of trying to ruin her reputation, and even try to turn the kids against me. She'd say I was crazy, that I was overreacting, that I was just jealous of her success. But I knew better. I knew her game now. She was trying to manipulate everyone, including the kids, to make herself look innocent. I kept my cool, stayed focused on the facts, and made sure I documented everything. It wasn't just about the money or the house anymore. It was about her trying to destroy me and everything we'd built together. I found out she'd even been talking to some shady characters, possibly trying to set up new financial schemes or even move abroad with the money. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just a cheating wife. She was a con artist, a thief, and a liar. I knew I had to act fast before she disappeared completely. I started assembling everything I needed to take her to court: proof of her affair, her stolen money, her secret accounts, and her lies. I also contacted a private investigator to dig into her background further. I wanted to know if she had any other secrets, any other hidden assets or plans. The more I uncovered, the angrier I became. She played me for a fool for years, and now I was finally seeing her for what she truly was: a manipulative, selfish bitch who'd do anything to get what she wanted. I also arranged for the house to be appraised and started the legal process to reclaim it. I knew she'd fight me tooth and nail, claiming she had some right to it or that I was unfit to own property. But I had the evidence, and I was confident I'd win. I wanted her to understand that her lies and schemes had consequences, that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. Meanwhile, I kept my distance. I didn't want to give her any more ammunition, so I stayed calm and measured. I didn't respond to her bitchy messages or her attempts to guilt-trip me. I knew that if I gave her an inch, she'd take a mile. I was building my case, mentally preparing for the final showdown. I knew this was going to get ugly, but I was ready. I wasn't going down without a fight. Every day was a new battle, but I could feel the tide turning. The truth was finally coming out, and I was going to make sure she paid for her lies, her betrayal, and her theft. I didn't care what she said or did anymore. I was focused on reclaiming my life, my money, and my dignity. She had pushed me to the edge, but now I was standing tall. And I knew, deep down, that I'd come out of this stronger. The court date was set, and I remember feeling a strange mix of exhaustion and determination. I had spent weeks gathering every piece of evidence I could find: bank records, emails, text messages, witness statements, even that private investigator's reports. I knew she'd try to spin her lies, but I had the truth on my side. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was already scheming her next move, trying to outmaneuver me before the hearing. When she found out I was serious about fighting for the house and the money, her bitchy attitude only got worse. She started throwing tantrums, accusing me of ruining her life, calling me a jealous, insecure bastard. She told our kids I was the bad guy, that I was trying to take everything away from her because I was controlling. I could see her manipulative streak shining through every time she pretended to cry or act innocent. But I didn't buy it anymore. I knew her game and was determined not to fall for her tricks. The day of the hearing finally arrived. I sat there in the courtroom, feeling like I was on trial myself. She was dressed to the nines, all bitchy smirk and fake tears, trying to look innocent. Her lawyer was doing her best to spin her lies, claiming she was entitled to the house because she'd contributed more, whatever that meant, given she'd hidden her true financial plans from the start. But I had the evidence, and I was ready to lay it all out. When it was my turn, I presented everything: proof of her affair, her secret accounts, her theft of $250, $0, and her shady dealings. I explained how she'd been planning her escape for months, siphoning off our savings and buying that house behind my back. I told the court about her attempts to manipulate the kids and distort the truth. I saw her lawyer's face tighten as I laid it all out, and I knew I was making an impact. The judge listened carefully, asking questions and reviewing the evidence. It was tense. I could feel her bitchy smirk falter a little when confronted with the facts. And when the judge finally made the ruling, awarding me full custody of the house, ordering her to pay back the stolen money and restricting her access to our accounts, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. The battle was over and I'd won. But the victory came with a cost. My trust was shattered, and I knew I'd never see her the same way. Again, she was exposed for what she truly was: a manipulative, selfish liar who'd betrayed everything I held dear. She screamed and yelled, claiming the court was biased, that I was just trying to ruin her, but I didn't care. I had the proof and I had my life back. In the aftermath, I started to rebuild. I moved out of the house, took control of my finances, and began the long process of healing. I kept my distance from her, knowing she'd try to come back with some new scheme. But I was prepared. I learned the hard way that trust is fragile and that some people will do anything to get what they want, even if it destroys everything around them. Looking back, I realize I've grown stronger from this nightmare. I learned to trust my instincts, to stand up for myself, and to never let someone manipulate me again. The betrayal was brutal, but it taught me that I'm capable of fighting back, no matter how dark things seem. If there's one thing I'd tell others in a similar situation, it's this: don't ignore the signs. Trust your gut, gather your evidence, and fight for what's yours, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to do it for you. You have to take control, even if it means burning everything down first. If you're going through something similar, know this: you're not alone and you're stronger than you think. Keep your head clear, stay focused, and never underestimate your own resilience. The truth always comes out in the end. After everything was settled legally, I thought I'd finally get some peace. But the truth is, the aftermath hit me harder than the fight itself. I moved out of the house, left behind the memories of what was supposed to be our life together. It felt surreal, like I was waking up from a nightmare I couldn't quite remember in full detail. The house, the money, the betrayal, all of it had left scars I knew would take years to heal. Still, I was relieved I fought for what was rightfully mine. The hardest part wasn't the legal victory. It was the realization that she'd been living a secret life that I never knew about. I found out she'd been involved in shady financial schemes, hiding assets, and even trying to set up a new identity with some shady contacts abroad. It was like discovering she'd been a completely different person all along. I felt anger, but also a deep sadness. How could someone I loved and trusted do this? How could she lie and manipulate everyone around her for so long? Over time, I started to rebuild my life. I focused on my kids, making sure they knew they were loved and protected from her chaos. I threw myself into work, pouring my energy into rebuilding my career and my confidence. I knew I'd never forget the betrayal, but I also knew I couldn't let it define me. I had to move forward no matter how much it hurt. Looking back, I realize how naive I'd been. I believed in the fairy tale of marriage, of loyalty, of love that lasted forever. But the truth is, some people are just good at hiding their true selves. My wife, Emily, was one of those people. She was bitchy, manipulative, and utterly selfish. She lied so convincingly that I almost believed her. But I learned that the truth always comes out, sometimes in the worst ways possible. This whole experience taught me a lot about trust and human nature. I learned to listen to my instincts, to pay attention to the little signs I'd ignored for too long. I learned that even the most charming, bitchy woman can hide a dark, secret life. And most importantly, I learned that I am stronger than I thought, that I can survive betrayal, rebuild from the ashes, and come out better on the other side. Now, I'm focused on my future, on healing and moving on. I still get angry sometimes when I think about everything she did, but I also feel a strange sense of liberation. I realize I was blinded by love, but I'm no longer that person. I see clearly now, and I refuse to let her or anyone else manipulate me again. My advice to anyone reading this: trust your gut, stay vigilant, and never let anyone take away your peace. Because in the end, the only thing that truly matters is your own happiness and integrity. And I know now that even after the worst betrayal, there's a way to start over. You just have to be brave enough to face the truth and fight for yourself.